This is the new Audi Q3 Sportback plug-in, and together we'll find out if it finally manages to bring back the classic Audi qualities we've always admired and appreciated so much. And with that, hello and welcome to this new video here at Your House, and welcome to the first driving impression of the new Audi Q3, naturally in the plug-in variant here in beautiful white, which is typically offered by Audi for their plug-in hybrid test drive vehicles on the open road today. Let's dive in. I was able to show you some of them recently as well. If you missed it, that means you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Feel free to do that below the video for free. It helps me in my work, and not just to record videos here in Scotland, no, but also to show you the latest details. Yes, I know it's another plug-in hybrid, but honestly, it really takes a back seat today. Because today we're looking at everything that Audi apparently wants to do better again. Because in the past few months, Audi has taken a hit when it comes to materials, aesthetics, and variety, but also in terms of display options. I already showed you in one of my recent videos that, in my opinion, Audi's software has now reached a really solid and reliable level. And already there's a new software generation, and of all places in the compact segment. But let's take it step by step. This here is the Q3 in the Sportback e-hybrid variant, and since its market launch, the Q3 has sold nearly 2.5 million units, solidifying its position as one of Audi's best-selling models. Or to put it simply, it's damn important for getting sales targets and profit margins back on track in a reasonable direction. The Q3 is built on the MQB Evo platform, which is the advanced next-generation version of the widely recognized platform from the Volkswagen Group. For instance, the Volkswagen Golf, the Audi A3, and the Tiguan, from the Volkswagen family, are all based on that very same platform, just like the Q3 we're discussing here today. It comes with Audi's signature new split light design and the updated logo, which now cleverly conceals radar sensors underneath its sleek surface. In addition, it comes standard with 18-inch wheels, and in the PH variant, the charging port is conveniently positioned on the left side. That will definitely be a big plus for some, particularly those with garage parking. The coupe variant at Audi Sportback offers slightly less trunk space, but more than makes up for it with its enhanced design and added premium features, significantly boosting its overall value and appeal. To focus on the design, whether you prefer the SUV more or this coupe variant, that's a decision each of you has to make for yourself. In the test, I'll be showing you this particular model. But first, I'm really curious. What's your opinion on Audi's current design language? They presented a completely new concept at the IAA, showing the direction Audi design is set to evolve in. Right now, what you're seeing is this. A sleek, seamless light strip, the lamps arranged above it, illuminated Audi rings, and the brake positioned vertically. What's your take? Share your thoughts in the comments, I'm really curious. What you think about it, especially in the A6 versus a 6 comparison. Some of you actually wrote about it in a pretty constructive way. I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that. We'll come back to the platform because unfortunately, it results in a very small trunk for the plug-in hybrids. In numbers, that translates to 375 litres, which is 13 litres less in capacity than the VW ID.3, a compact electric car. Sure, you can optimize things a bit by adjusting the rear seat's length and backrest angle. However, because of the 45-litre fuel tank, which had to be repositioned in the package, it now occupies the entire storage space beneath the trunk floor area completely. There's not too much space left, and that's quite surprising considering the overall size of the vehicle, even though this is specifically the coupe version. Under the hood, there's the 1.5-litre TFSI engine, which, combined with the electric motor, delivers 200 kilowatts or 272 horsepower of system power. That's perfectly fine and more than enough. But let's take a look at the driving experience right away. Overall, this 4.53-meter-long SUV actually offers less space than one might expect from the outside. Tucked away under the rear seat is the 25.7 or 19.7 kilowatt-hour battery, designed with a 400-volt architecture and capable of charging at 50 kilowatt DC speeds. That comes standard. We're currently testing how long it takes to charge from 10 to 80%, and we've fully drained it down to 0% to accurately determine the actual realistic range for you as well, in real-world conditions. How it drives without a battery. All those topics are naturally covered in this video too. 50 kilowatts DC is really reasonable because it means you're not just stuck at one charging spot here, but also in urban areas, for example in Germany at a Lidl store, you can simply plug in your car at EB-Go and then go from 10 to 80% while you're busy. That's the situation after 23 minutes and 10 seconds, timed from 10 to 80%, plugged in at 0%, and then it climbs back up to 80% again after 27 minutes total. It holds 50 kilowatts for a good while. In the summer, comparable cars even hit peaks of 56 kilowatts. But it's a time frame that's more than sufficient to fully charge up the car while you're out running your shopping errands. And that's clearly the point on long-distance trips maybe, but especially in everyday life where one or the other might not be able to charge at home to say, okay, I have 1 or 2 sports weekly to charge, then DC, it makes total sense. In the AC area, it's charging at 11 kilowatts. But now, let's shift our focus to the interior, the space where Audi has, subjectively speaking, faced the most criticism over the past months. They are fully committed to making a strong comeback to their former glory, and they're clearly showcasing it through the Q3's model design features. With plush, well-appointed seats and a fully redesigned interior, they're successfully introducing the premium features of high-end vehicles into the compact class. But in many key areas, it essentially adapts and evolves. For example, the hotkeys, which had been missing, now find their place here once again. You can effortlessly access every function using the standard keys, and the physical volume dial has now made its welcome return as well. Positioned behind it, you'll find a 15-watt cooled wireless charging pad, complemented by a sleek piano gloss finish throughout. There's clearly still some potential for improvement in that area. The same can definitely be said about the steering wheel buttons as well. I personally like the ones with the swipe gestures, but I know a lot of you aren't fans of them. What a lot of people will like, though, is this new unit behind the steering wheel. The control unit seamlessly integrates the gear selector, turn signal, and wiper controls, all designed in an extremely intuitive and user-friendly way for drivers. The features you don't adjust as often are designed as a dial or a short button, while everything else is conveniently placed within arm's reach. This setup replaces the large touchpad in the door, which we're familiar with from the Q6 and A6 models. Now there are additional buttons down by the bottle instead. In the compact segment of the Q3, the material feel is genuinely impressive and well executed, even though, as expected, hard plastic is still present at the very bottom. Additionally, there's an optional enhanced ambient lighting feature, which once again introduces something fresh with precisely milled elements and these sleek dynamic lines. Then there's also the center console, which, for example, they even forgot about in the A6. The large design element that's been integrated instead of a passenger display doesn't particularly appeal to me visually at all. But there are many other positive aspects, for example, the rear seat bench. You can also see here that the material assumption is being implemented exactly as previously mentioned. So there's no longer a distinction between sitting in the front or the back. As already mentioned with the trunk, it has the advantage that you can fully adjust it and move it quite far forward, providing extra flexibility. Frontmost position, barely any knee room left here, but it significantly increases the trunk's flexibility and versatility. And the backrest angle can also be adjusted to a wide range of different positions. And I find that very handy, especially with child seats. For that, there are ISOFIX mounts on the rear outer seats, and as a dad, I always find it very important that you can also be on the road alone with your child and then secure the infant carrier in the front using ISOFIX. Now, let's dive into the software. At first glance, you might be surprised by how small the displays appear in this otherwise large and beautifully designed curved screen, which gives a very premium and high-quality impression overall. Because with 11.9 inches and 12.8, it initially seems like a substantial and impressive size. However, the driver info display is surprisingly smaller than one might expect, yet it now includes crucial features such as widgets on both sides, advanced driver assistance systems, and finally, a generously sized map once again. The main screen is decently large, almost on par with the Audi A6 and all other big derivatives, except that the software here runs significantly faster and is based on Android Automotive or a similar platform, ensuring a smoother and more responsive user experience overall. Google Automotive. This also means that you can choose from a wide range of apps to install in your car, making the infotainment system even more comprehensive, flexible, and tailored to your personal needs and preferences, enhancing your overall driving experience. From games to multimedia, everything is included. So even watching my latest YouTube video during a charging break is no problem in the car from now on, making downtime more enjoyable. Those who don't want to use it can still rely on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto to seamlessly mirror their own phone's content and apps. And that's also getting better and better thanks to updates and works perfectly in a completely wireless manner. The software, on the other hand, truly shines in every single area, being significantly more intuitive, cleaner, and far more straightforward to navigate and understand. And here's another quick reminder, feel free to check out Die Kilometer Fressereien, my podcast that I host alongside Tarek. The question then is, how much is genuinely new and what truly makes it stand out from everything else available? But just because it now runs on Android, or more specifically Google Automotive, and everything operates significantly faster, the entire menu structure remains quite similar to the previous version. It looks more modern, but you also lose some space due to this bar at the top and on the left. And it's pretty much identical to Apple CarPlay, especially with the new iOS update available now. That now looks almost like Audi's own operating system. The fact that the apps here look the same as on the PPE platform is largely because the entire system is developed by CARIOT, and they naturally aim to maintain a consistent design approach, especially for Audi to create a unified look and appearance with the driver information display, ensuring a seamless integration. Now I'm used to it. After 2 days, I find it great as a driver. As a passenger, it still takes some getting used to, with the bar being so narrow and the difference between the main display and the driver info display appearing quite significant. Differentiation makes sense, of course. The compact car can't possibly have all the exact same features and dimensions as the larger vehicles naturally do, obviously. But back then, you simply had smaller displays. Now it stays within this framework where we have the map, and I find all the widgets to be really great and useful. And since we're already sitting in the car here, something else needs to be mentioned. I don't know what Audi did or messed up together with Sonos, but the sound quality isn't on the level where I would expect it to be when I hear Audi as a premium manufacturer and Sonos. Because no matter what settings we adjusted here, it never sounded quite right, the bass is too muddy, not punchy enough, and lacks proper definition. The subwoofer doesn't kick in as hard as you'd like, and the highs clip sometimes, and when you adjust them, unfortunately, the whole thing ends up sounding too muddy. We tried adjusting all the settings, but still couldn't find the optimal configuration. Audi definitely needs to fine-tune that. Maybe there's a lot that can be done on the software side. And the rear view camera? Well, this camera image really isn't up to the level of quality I'd expect it to achieve. It does have all the features with side, front, rear, and top view cameras, which is all well and good, but the overall quality and resolution of the individual cameras, those definitely could be improved quite a bit more. The hardest part here with the driving experience isn't really handling the car itself, but dealing with the surroundings, because, well, driving on the left is always different, especially with a left-hand drive car, because it's really challenging here, but I'm just taking my time. I'm here in Scotland traveling with Tarek, who I do my podcast Die Kilometer Fresser with, and today on Instagram I uploaded my very first driving experience here in Scotland. With left-hand traffic, feel free to check it out on Jonas whenever you've got a moment to spare. We made a video together. It's definitely worth checking out because let's just say it's not as serious as usual. I'm pressing here, I'm actually glad that the roads aren't always perfect. Even here on a fairly well-built road, you can hear a relatively rough surface, but the suspension is really well designed and handles it smoothly without any noticeable problems. So Audi places a lot of emphasis on offering 3 different types of suspension. The standard steel suspension, then there's the sport suspension, and the optional DCC system installed here, which includes 2 valves for enhanced performance, one for the rebound stage and one for the compression stage. This setup allows both the compression and rebound to be finely adjusted, offering enhanced precision in managing various driving conditions. That means adapting to both the driving conditions of the terrain as well as the various driving modes available. I can smoothly switch between the various driving modes here using Drive Select, like balance, dynamic, comfort, and efficiency. And that also controls the suspension travel and stiffness naturally, but always within a specific predefined and limited range of adjustment. It's not like an air suspension where you can actually make huge adjustments, but it's definitely sufficient to clearly demonstrate noticeable differences and allow you to move around here smoothly and effectively without any major issues. While we're now driving on a regular country road, I'll set the cruise control to 60 miles per hour, and I can now easily activate or deactivate the lane centering feature directly from the steering wheel without any hassle. Previously it was done through the upper area, but now it's no longer possible. It's been moved to the new steering wheel controls located behind the wheel instead, downward, or it's been moved to the steering wheel. The logic behind it though remains the same as before. That means I can still click up or down to adjust the speed, and there's a switch for the distance setting. This is also shown to me in the optional head-up display. It's a small display though, not augmented reality, just a classic interface with arrows, the current speed and the speed limit clearly visible, making it easy to read at a quick glance. And one more thing, I can either disable it using the star button or through the shortcut right here on the display, whichever is more convenient for me. I find it quite handy that there's this bit of duality built in, and of course if I want to assign the star button differently, I can always disable it directly up here on the display. The driving event is split into 2 days, and today on the first day we're driving continuously in EV mode. You can see that on one hand in the bottom left of the display, but also down here in the shortcuts. Because it then lights up green, and I can easily turn it on and off using the button. I also get a display in the bottom right corner showing both how much of the power output is currently being used, and whenever the motor would activate, then the RPM would also show up on the right. That's not the case right now though, and I always try to drive in a moderate way so that I don't need it. On the highway, the entire system would operate purely electric up to 140 kilometers per hour. It reaches its maximum speed at 215 kilometers per hour when running in hybrid mode. Until then, no speeches. The electric motor only provides support, but it's not fully electric anymore. I have to say I'm really feeling comfortable on the left side of the road by now, and I'm glad there's a flight between the driving event and heading back home. I don't have to take a ferry and keep driving afterward, which would mean having to completely readjust all over again, and that would be a hassle. But it's going pretty smoothly, and the car is really making a good impression. We've driven, let me check, 35.8 miles now. and it's been a solid ride so far. Feel free to convert that, see what it is, and we've used 25 kilowatt hours in the process. The consumption is shown at the end with only 24% battery left. It'll be tight whether Tarek can drive electrically later, but I'm confident he can. That it will work because we've been driving uphill the whole time, and that completely puts the consumption into perspective and doesn't really say much yet. That will come at the end of the video, but it was important to me to already give a bit of a sense of it right now. We've really climbed quite a few meters in altitude, and it's genuinely a lot of fun. It's not like if I fully floor it in electric mode, I'll have endless power here. It's 85 kilowatts peak power and 55 kilowatts continuous power. That's okay. Overall, it's likely going to be significantly more enjoyable in hybrid mode. We'll take a look at that in the second part here, the driving experience. Now, in the electric version, you can notice the shifting in some spots. It's just typical for the Volkswagen Group on the MQB platform, where the electric motor sits exactly between the combustion engine and the transmission. That's why even in pure electric mode, it still feels like there's some interaction with the gear system. The shifting processes of the S-tronic here in the vehicle are carried along, but I think for the most part it really drives like an electric car with all the advantages, all the benefits that you get with it. And it's genuinely enjoyable. Even on these twistier roads, it actually handles incredibly well and feels super stable. And as an SUV coupe, it's allowed to be a bit sportier. And at night, the little Q3 shows the bigger models an Audi virtue, because especially when it comes to lighting, it really impresses. Matrix LED lighting isn't exactly new for Audi. As pioneers in lighting, they've been making significant strides in lighting development for years and are now proudly showcasing it once again, with micro LED technology in the digital lights making its impressive debut here in the compact segment. I find that truly impressive, and 25,600 individual micro LEDs is indeed a remarkably significant and noteworthy number. They are smaller than 40 micrometers, making them significantly thinner than a single strand of human hair. And that's just a single LED, and it projects, for instance, the arrow onto the road right here whenever I get too close to the left curb marking and start driving too near it, signaling me to adjust my position accordingly and safely, or directly in the center of both lanes, providing me with a clear and immediate visual of my precise position on the road ahead. On the highway, it takes it up a notch because, in a way, the carpet is inverted and now truly functions as a tangible physical carpet surface. Because my lane is fully illuminated, while the area where I'm moving or driving into appears darker, creating a distinct and clearly noticeable contrast between both of those specific spaces I'm navigating through. The same applies to the arrows, and if I, for example, signal to indicate a lane change, the entire area lights up, and that's really practical and makes things much clearer and more intuitive. There's also an additional feature, for example, that signals the automated lane change to interact with the outside world, and I find that genuinely practical and quite useful. Because it's a step toward autonomous driving, of course still far from it, but just to show, hey look, I'm actively perceiving and analyzing the environment as a road user and clearly demonstrating that to you. What I'm about to do and the direction I'm heading in, it actually works really well, surprisingly. Similarly, if there's someone in the blind spot and I signal at that moment, the turn signal doesn't extend outward but instead restricts me inward, keeping me from changing lanes safely. To show me, please stay in your lane. The only issue I have with this is that the dark area or the bright spot on rural roads doesn't accurately reflect the car's actual width, which can sometimes be quite misleading and cause confusion. It provides me with a sense of where I'm positioned in the lane, but it doesn't accurately correspond to the true width of the car itself. That would be even cooler if it matched the exact lane width, because then I'd immediately know for sure, okay, if I'm on a narrow lane, am I actually staying fully within it or not at all? So I have to make sure I keep the whole thing relatively centered, but there's still a bit of room for improvement, and there also needs to be some further development.
It's daytime now, so everything is clearly visible and easy to manage, making it even more user-friendly.
Here we're driving in hybrid mode, testing what the fuel consumption is like and also what the car can still do in terms of driving dynamics. On one hand, I can switch to S mode here, then I can also see the gears all the time, and the car becomes noticeably more agile, stays more responsive to the throttle, and allows for more. Typical for a plug-in hybrid, when you really step on it, especially for example on the highway, it does rev relatively high. But it works just as well here on the country roads. It's unfamiliar. I talked to Audi colleagues yesterday and they said, well, you in the electric sector are more used to everything being very quiet, but I do find it a bit odd when the engine is revved up so high and the noise becomes so intense and overwhelming. And hey, how incredibly narrow these streets are, don't you think, Tarek? That was just a massive 40-ton truck. Now, here comes this one, barely squeezing through the tight space. In hybrid mode, it's crucial because the car always factors in the electric range when calculating the overall distance for the journey. So if I just enter a destination now, it will optimally distribute it in a way that ideally uses the battery spread out over this distance. If, like we did today, for example, you drive to a point, don't charge there, and then drive back, it makes sense to always enter the entire route. It's a bit cumbersome, but you should get used to it because then the car intelligently calculates from the start of the trip to the intermediate stop and back how it should manage the energy efficiently. 19.7 kilowatt hours optimally used, and that's one thing, I kind of get it, but the fact that it always does this is a bit problematic for me because just because I'm driving a certain route today doesn't mean it'll be the same tomorrow or even necessary. Just because it's a shorter distance, it doesn't mean I want to use the full battery on this short trip and that I necessarily charge at the destination and that it always gets fully used. There needs to be some kind of middle ground where you can tell the car, please optimize it for me. Along with the tank so that, for example, when I fill it up and fully charge it, I can use it for the entire distance, or that there's still some kind of mix somewhere. The only option available in the energy section is to set the reserve here, so I can specify, for example, hey, I'd like to have 40% remaining once I actually arrive at the destination. So I can say, okay, I start with 80, and if I still input the final destination, then I keep the reserve, and it optimizes it so that I arrive at the destination with the reserve intact. And if I set it up here right now, then I also notice the combustion engine kicks in more noticeably now because we still have 55%. The reserve is displayed by the small arrow in front, and that's just not a whole lot left now. That's why we take it out and let it calculate more intelligently instead. What then also became new are parking functions. For instance, I can now choose reverse, press start, and the car independently drives the last few meters completely by itself. Meters I drove simply reversing back. It works for the last 500 meters, I really believe it does. 50 meters, that wouldn't be exaggerated now. And then the car remembers how I drove forward and allows me to repeat the exact same path effortlessly. Reverse back out. But I can also, for example, do train parking, meaning I can save a few settings once, then say here, this is how I like it, and store it. Every time I come back, I can call it up at home and then, for instance, retrieve it again. It's not something entirely new, but I think it's quite practical, and above all, it shows that in this more compact segment, features like this are now being implemented,
which you still miss in the larger models.
And then there's the topic of consumption. With pure electric driving, we had an average consumption of 23.6 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. But we also mostly drove uphill. That really needs to be said transparently. That's fine by me. We tried to balance it out topographically. Unfortunately, it didn't work out because we were just too fast and too high up, and then on the way down, the battery eventually ran out. That's how we ended up doing around 70 kilometers. However, I've been able to show with other cars and demonstrations that it's better in everyday use. Today's average consumption in hybrid mode was 2.9 liters plus 15.6 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is really good for a plug-in. However, purely from an energy perspective, it still requires a lot of energy per 100 kilometers. So while the plug-in drivetrain makes sense in some ways, but we still won't make it back to the hotel because we have, let me check, 40 miles left to cover and only 19% remaining in the battery, which isn't nearly enough. And with that, the battery will run out just before. I already demonstrated it on the long drive, but let's just get it over with here. A great deal of effort went into this video, and I truly hope you can appreciate that at this point. And I actually flew to the island with really high expectations to thoroughly test out the Q3 in detail. Not to thoroughly test the plug-in hybrid, we've already done that on the channel, and not that either, so yeah. To see how well the charging performance, the driving characteristics are, even though all of that was already part of this video. I wanted to find out if the four rings are back on track and delivering the expected performance. Because after all the praise, for example, for Volkswagen at the IAA and around it, your enthusiasm for the ID.Polo, the ID.Cross, the new naming, and also the new interior, so it was important for me to ask, what is Audi doing on the other side? Because this is what you can currently get, and it's in the compact segment. And I think they're doing a lot of things right, and I truly don't mean to praise Audi excessively or lift them to the skies at all. I aim to show it objectively, and I hope I did in this video. And as a conclusion, you have to say Audi put in the effort. They've brought a lot of technology from the premium platforms and even from the more expensive models into the compact segment, and they've even surpassed it. Technologies that were previously left out or overlooked, including the digital lighting and a well-designed driver info display unit, everything brought back into the equation and combined with outstanding driving dynamics from the technology, utilizing resources from the Volkswagen Group's shelf and packaging it all into a genuinely attractive and well-rounded vehicle. My hope is that the whole thing will soon be incorporated into a facelift for the Audi Q4 and that we gradually get to witness the direction in which this brand hopefully evolves for the better. And I'm not just saying that because I lived in Ingolstadt for a few years and also, among other things, had the chance to work with Audi during my training back then. No, because personally, it's simply important to me that the cars we produce, which we in Germany also stand for, are good and above all, that they move forward in a meaningful way. And then I don't care if it's a diesel, a combustion engine, a plug-in, or an electric car. It's really just about seeing once more that it's working. I saw that at the IAA. I had the feeling, hey, things are moving forward again with the GLC, with the iX3, with the VW concepts. And I see that to some extent here as well. Where do you see that? Feel free to write it in the comments. I'm super excited to hear your feedback on this video. I think you can see it was quite a bit of effort. And likely quite long too. Otherwise, see my Audi A6 versus a 6 comparison up here. And down here, you can subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.